Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life Podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I'm really excited to have today's guest on because I have the great privilege of actually known her, I think now for like a couple years. And she's a mom to, wait for it, 9 humans, 9. And she runs a business called the Intentional Mom. She also is a podcast host of the Intentional Midlife Mom Podcast, which is like right up my alley right now, checks a lot of my boxes. And she hosts, which we're going to really talk about today, this online summit for women that is all about helping to reduce stress around the holidays, which, let's be honest, right now we're in mid-October. We know that Halloween decorations started in the stores back in like July. And before you know it, we're going to have like Valentine's Day for 2025. So thinking about the holidays now is like right on point. So I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to get a little bit of a jump start, because even though we know that Thanksgiving and Christmas all come around the same time of year, and even Hanukkah is relatively like within the same realm, it still causes so much stress and anxiety for people for a multitude of reasons. And so opportunities like this summit are a great way for you to feel a little less alone and get some actionable strategies. So I figured who better to talk about the summit and who it's for and what you can gain from it than the organizer herself. And again, if anybody knows stress and overwhelm, it's a mother of 9 humans. And she's also a grandmom too, and she doesn't look old enough to be a grandma. So without further ado, let me welcome my friend, Jennifer Roskamp, to the show.
Hey, Lori, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today and see how we can help your listeners a little bit this holiday season.
I am really excited as well because you and I have known each other, through kind of the online community and space for a couple of years right now. And just the timing, I'm so glad the timing caught up right now, because I said, I had the opportunity to be a guest speaker at your summit talking about things in my lane, but there's so many people that are out there doing amazing things. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of that, just give everybody a little bit of kind of high level. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve? All the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, as a busy mom of 9, I love helping women manage their lives. I'm also a certified life coach. And so, I like helping women do what I call get out of the back seat where life happens to you, right? You're just kind of along for the ride, kind of absorbing whatever happens and saying, oh man, this is kind of a lot. And to get into the driver's seat where you have some say so. We have a lot more control over our lives than we realize, I think, initially, and really kind of how we're conditioned to think. And the one thing we always control is our mindset, right? And so that's a lot of where I start with women, because again, we think we might have a spending issue or a clutter issue, and we do, but what's underneath there is our ability to kind of manage our mindset, understand ourselves, right? Understanding ourselves and understanding our issues is kind of always going to be the best starting point to start from, because you have to kind of understand the problem before you can solve it. And so more recently, as I've become a midlife mom myself, as you mentioned, I've realized that, I think generally we think that when we get to our 50s or close to our 50s, which is where I'm at, we're supposed to have it all figured out and life is supposed to be easy and we're supposed to be, just sailing along and cruising along, and all those uncertainties and things like that are beyond us. And I'm realizing, you know what? I think it's not actually that way. And I think as women, we should talk about that. So that really is, that is really who I definitely want to be a voice for, is again, let's have a conversation about the fact that life has maybe different struggles, but man, there's a lot to manage here, right? And we got menopause and perimenopause and all this stuff, and all those hormones don't help at all. So let's just work on, really getting some intention, some purpose, and just figure out where we're going, what we're trying to do, and who we are. That's what I'm passionate about.
I love it. And I wrote down, I love your phrase where you say you help women get out of the backseat into the driver's seat. But here's the interesting thing. I think for a lot of people, being in the driver's seat is scary because that comes with responsibility, right? To continue on the car analogy, once you're in the driver's seat, you need to know where you're going. And for so many of us, we're flying by the seat of our pants, whether it comes to parenting or organizing our house or finances or navigating menopause or whatever. So we don't have a roadmap. And so as much as we feel out of control and we might, for lack of a better word, complain about it, once you get into that driver's seat, there's this whole other level of responsibility. And that's daunting,
Yeah.
So
it is definitely. But if you think about, do you want to be in an Uber Do you want to be in an Uber with no driver? That's what happens if we don't even try, right? If we don't try to figure this out and figure out how can I drive this car, right? That's the key. That's what you're saying is we got to figure out how to drive the car, and that can feel scary. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I think I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
I was just going to say, I love the analogy of driving a car, because I feel like that just everybody can relate to what that is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like I talk about with anything. Once we know kind of where our blind spots are when it comes to any of those fill in the blank areas, I feel we now have a responsibility to do better. Yeah. So when you are in the weeds of parenting, you're in the weeds of all the things and the stress and anxiety, it's like there's this, even though there's chaos, for some people, there's comfort in the chaos, and having tools like this, like your summit, where you're bringing together like a mastermind of different people who are kind of subject matter experts in a lot of the different hot button areas for people, is a great opportunity, but it can also seem overwhelming. Can you talk a little bit about, just set the stage for our listeners who aren't even familiar with the concept of what an online summit is? So talk a little bit about exactly, so you paint a picture for them what that looks like.
Yeah. So if you can think of a summit as like a conference, right? Like an in-person conference that you might attend, where there's different rooms with different speakers talking about different topics in the room, and they're happening kind of all at the same time, but you've kind of got enough time to go listen to them all if you'd like. But you can kind of decide what, they're different topics. Some of them might feel more relevant to you than others. And you just kind of, you look at all the different speakers and all the different topic ideas, and you say, wow, this really speaks to me. This is something I could really learn from. And so in the online space then, again, this is all online. So you can watch it in your pajamas and you're not going anywhere, and you can, be in the comfort of your own home. And so we bring in experts, expert speakers who, again, they know what they're talking about in their specific niche. And so that's what makes it such an amazing opportunity for me as an organizer, because of the summit, because I know what people, a lot of times, what my audience and my listeners will ask me for and ask for my help with. But if it's not something that I am very well versed in, it's not something I can necessarily help them with. And so I love, as the organizer of the summit, sitting down and looking at who do I want to help, and who can I bring to come alongside me to help what I know my audiences and my listeners need help with, probably what a lot of women need help with, probably same general kind of struggles. And how can we help them, in this case, manage their holidays with less stress? And so it's an opportunity, and it's free to join. You have 24 hours to watch each one of the presentations. And so it doesn't even cost you anything to join and attend. Of course, there's an option to upgrade where you would have lifetime instant access and a whole bunch of other amazing things, transcripts, stuff like that. But you can 100% attend free. We have a lot of live events. We've got speaker meet and greets. We've got live events before each day of presentations, after each day of presentations. And in most cases, including my summits in the past, it's all been over a span of just 1 week only. And so it's day 1, day 2, day 3, and all these presentations. Well, after several years, every summit, people say, oh my gosh, this is so much information. It's so amazing. I feel like I don't have time to digest. So this year, we're doing it even differently. And we are spreading the presentations over 2 weeks so that you've got a little bit of breathing room in between each day of presentation so that you can not only learn, but you can implement. And so that's really what a summit is. It's an opportunity to listen to some different topics, presentations delivered by experts on that topic. And we make sure it's super actionable. Every presentation ends with what's one thing that we can start with here that will help us get on the path, because we want, again, it not just to be head knowledge, but for it to be life implementation. And so it really is just an opportunity to all in one place get a lot of help with a lot of different common struggles that women typically have, but it's all in one place. You're not having to go listen to this person over here and that person over here. It's like we're all in the same place. And so it really is an opportunity to meet new experts, to meet new people. Because we've got a lot of live opportunities, you have the opportunity to chat with other summit attendees, share takeaways, challenge each other, encourage each other, support each other. So it's a whole lot of fun. It's a whole lot of learning. And it's a whole lot of, wow, I never thought about that kind of revelations throughout the whole event.
I love it. I love the whole concept because for many of our listeners, and I could relate when my kids were younger, I was like, well, there's two specific points that really stick out to me. One is obviously the cost, right? Everybody's mindful, and especially as we're heading into the holidays. And if you've ever attended an in-person conference, there's obviously costs associated between buying your ticket, if there's travel, food, all that other stuff. I love the fact that it's free, right? Like, again, you can upgrade to get all these other bells and whistles, but literally barrier for entry, free. So can't get much better than that.
Yep.
So, but what I love about this whole online forum, even though many of us are kind of Zoom overloaded, is it does allow an opportunity for people who maybe have little ones at home and can't get away, or you're working full time and you're like, I can't take off work to go to this event, but it allows you to then go ahead and be a part of this. And like you said, listen to the sessions early in the morning, get in a session midday, in the evening, whatever, and pick and choose the topics. One of the things is somebody who has spoken at many conferences and attended conferences, it can be overwhelming, or like drinking from a fire hose, right? Because you're trying to consume all this knowledge about either really a deep dive into one topic, or like something like this, where you've got a lot of different subject matter experts. And what I always tell people is go in there with one agenda. What is, like you said, what is my one takeaway that I want? Where am I struggling? And go after, look at those topics. So if it's clutter, great, come listen to me. If it's something else, give our listeners a little bit of a overview over some of the different, because we're obviously the theme is holidays.
Yeah.
So what are some of the pain points that you've heard from your listeners and that have said, we need help with this? What are some of those key areas?
Yeah. So, and I will say too, that the cool thing about it being a summit is a lot of times you have an opportunity to listen to something that you don't think necessarily there'll be a takeaway for you, but you listen to something that's kind of off the wall and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is totally cool. So I love those kinds of things. But yeah, so we have 6 main categories that we cover in the summit. So the first one is care for self. So we're talking about, again, women taking care of themselves. We're talking about things like finding balance, dealing with difficult relationships, especially during the holidays. And that's another point too, is the holiday is a theme, but man, the things that you will learn in the summit, they are applicable in all different ways, not just during the holidays. That's what makes it so amazing too. But so care for self. And then we also talk about home and holiday management. We talk about meals, because that's one of the challenges, about the holidays, is that you have your normal life happening at the same time. And I don't know about you, but the people in my house still need to eat, no matter how many presents I still need to buy, no matter how many holiday concerts I have to get to, or whatever it is, right? So we've got people making meals easier, helping us with that. And then we talk about routines and schedules, and that's basically like time management. How do I make it all fit? And especially, again, thinking about, we've got our normal life, and then we've got all the holiday extras, and it just kind of creates this pressure cooker. So how do we make it all work? And then the last thing we have, well, the second to last thing we have is T. We call that task mastery. And that's basically just, how can we get things done more quickly and easily? I know we have someone talking specifically about holiday travel. We've got a couple of faith-based speakers this year. And then the last category that we talk about is motherhood. And so again, just how can we make being mom simpler during the holidays too, because that's still this regular role that we fulfill, right? So yeah, these are the 6 main categories, and there's just a lot of diversity even in between them. We've got someone talking about step family dynamics when you're in a 2-parent home. Just again, even under those categories, there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah. And I love it because it is covering such a wide spectrum, and you can hone in on the areas that are relevant for you in the season of life that you're in. If you're in a blended family and those struggles are real, that is like something I'm going to that. If you're not, and that doesn't necessarily apply, if you want to go to listen and just learn, great, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
And I really, the more I've gotten involved in these types of events, the more I found such value. And I've also had the opportunity, just for our listeners, to not only be a speaker, but attend some of the breakout sessions, to go into the online chat in the Facebook groups and whatnot, and hear where people are, what people are saying. And I have to say, we can oftentimes, despite all of the chaos that's happening in our world, feel very alone, and to sit and say, oh, I'm not. There are other people that are feeling this frustrated, this insecure, this whatever it is, fill in the blank. There's a camaraderie in that. And I really, it's something that I think is not always talked about, like as a byproduct of these types of events. And I love that. I love it.
That feeling seen and heard. You will discover, like you say, that you're not alone in these common struggles. Other people are struggling to figure out, how do I make it all work? How do I find time for myself? And it's so helpful. Like you say, we often do feel so isolated, and like everybody else has it all figured out. What's wrong with me that I don't? So yeah, you get so much of that from these kinds of events.
Do you have any specific stories? Because obviously we've talked a lot about it, what they can get from a very, tactical perspective, but just wonder if you could share like any stories, specific examples of, feedback that you've heard from people who have been through it.
Yeah. So some of the things we hear most often are kind of similar to what I just shared already, which was, I didn't know that I would gain so much value from things that seem unrelated to me, no matter what session I attended. I found takeaways. I found things that were applicable to me. So that's always one of the big things we hear. Another thing that we hear is that it's so appreciated that our speakers are usually, as they can be, and most times to some extent, every one of them is involved in the community, like you're talking about. We have a community where a lot of times the speakers are introducing themselves as the summit is happening live. So that's one thing I should mention, is that this is a live event. It does happen live over those 2 weeks of the summit. And so while that's happening, there is all of these touch points with the speakers. They can ask their questions. They can get their questions answered. They really appreciate that although the presentations themselves are pre-recorded while the summit is taking place, it is a very living, breathing activity and event to be a part of. And they really appreciate that as well. So I would say across the board, and of course, we always hear how gracious and amazing our speakers are, because they are. So I would say those are the 3 biggest pieces of feedback. And I also, again, this year, I'm excited about spanning it over 2 weeks, because I know the feedback we're going to get back is I was able to move at my own pace much, much more. And I didn't need to feel like I had to pick and choose between what I watched, because you have the time to do that. So I am already looking so forward to the feedback we're going to get from this summit. And I will say too, each presentation, we keep it between 25 and 30 minutes. So it's not a real huge time commitment. And I know that's something that attendees appreciate as well. They don't, it's not an hour-long presentation. They're short, they're actionable, they're easily digestible. That is always something that's appreciated too.
Yeah. And I have to give you major props, because to organize something of this magnitude, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts logistically, from the tactical side of things. There is so much. And I mean, I know from the user experience, spreading it over 2 weeks is going to be great, but that's just dragging it out for you. So I just, again, as somebody who is on the other side and can see even a fraction of the work that goes into planning this, thank you for doing this. And my biggest thing, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, not just because I get to be a part of this, is there are so many people that are craving knowledge, and they either are dealing in any of these kind of subject areas that you highlighted. And there's so much amazing free content that is out there, and people don't always know where to go to look. And podcasts, I think, have really helped because it's paved the way. But again, when you're in it, you take for granted that other people might not know that these online summits exist. And so I wanted to give you this opportunity so that we could educate our listeners and say, hey, this is here for you. So we're going to have a link in the show notes for you to go ahead and register. And again, you could pick and choose with your schedule. It is totally free to join. So all you have to do is just put in your name and email address, and you will get an online ticket to attend all of these sessions.
Yeah. I think to your point too, you made such a good point in the fact that you're right. It's hard to know where to go. We have the online opportunities to learn are limitless, but I know I speak for you, I'm sure as well, where I carefully curate who I partake in their summits with, or any collaborations, right? You're collaborating with me on this event. And so your listeners can know that if it's something that you have said, I would like to be a part of this, like they know they can have confidence, I guess, in the fact that if that you are trusting your audience to come to this event. And so although they might have different viewpoints here or there with certain speakers, or again, there might be certain content that might not be totally relevant to them. I know I always assure my listeners and my audiences that if I participate in something, know that I have carefully vetted it. And if I tell you this is a great thing to go to, I truly mean it. And I have investigated that. And so that's really what makes this summit great too, is that if you are aware and align or really enjoy one of the speakers, chances are you can feel pretty confident that the speakers all bring a lot of similar and great value to the event as well. And so it does really help with that.
I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I really, truly am. And the other point that I want to, again, just reiterate is the fact that it is a live summit. And like you said, you get that real-time feedback, because I know for myself as the user, sometimes I'll go ahead and, either purchase or attend something that is 100% pre-recorded and there's no live interaction. And even if the content's relevant, it loses something, or I'm less jazzed to like carve out time in my day to attend it because I'm not getting that real-time feedback. But in your event, like, there is dialogue that is happening between speakers and attendees. You are engaged in those real-time conversations. There are specific calls to action. So it is like the best of both worlds. You have the flexibility to watch as you want, but you also have that personal connection that sometimes can be lost when you're just listening to something on a replay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And really, because of that live interaction too, you can take what you're learning to the next level. Like you mentioned, we are plugged in there those entire 2 weeks, asking people to share their takeaways, the things that attendees learn from one another. I mean, that is huge too. We ask, what are your takeaways? What did you think about this? What's going to be your action step? And so you gain so much encouragement, added accountability, I think added excitement and energy to, again, like you say, take what you learn and actually do something with it that just kind of can more easily get lost. Like you say, when you're watching just a class or a course that doesn't have a live component to it. There's just so much magic that happens when there's a live component. And so, yeah, that is one of the cool things.
So, all right. So let's tell everybody the dates, because we've told them we're going to put the link in. Give them the like nuts and bolts now.
Yeah.
When is it? All the things.
So the summit is taking place live from Monday, October 28th through Friday, November 8th. And the presentations fall on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then the speaker meet and greets happen on the Tuesday and Thursday. So again, there's plenty of live things on presentation days. But if you want to know the days that we actually are going to be sitting and consuming presentations, it would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those 2 weeks.
Perfect. And so right now, guys, if you're listening to this in real time, it's October 10th. So you have time to put in, sign up, you'll get your free ticket. And then you'll have plenty of time to go ahead. And if you are listening a few days later or whatever, we wanted to drop it within a couple weeks before the summit starts, because we know not everybody listens like the day our episode drops. Yep. And hopefully you guys will check it out and find like a whole new opportunity of ways to learn and find community and just really help reduce some of the stress in your life. Like you said, whether it's surrounding the holidays, holiday specific, or in general, because so many of these strategies that people are talking about are applicable, right? They're just, generic across the board. So,
absolutely.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Where can people, we're going to put the link for the summit in the show notes, but if people want to learn more about what you do or subscribe to your podcast, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. So I hang out a lot on Instagram. So I'm the Intentional Mom blog over on Instagram. I put a lot of content up there, a lot of teaching, a lot of learning takes place there. And then also my podcast, the Intentional Midlife Mom Podcast. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I look forward to chatting with you in a couple of weeks during the summit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lori. It's been great.
You got it. And for all you guys, don't forget, check out the link below in our show notes, or you can visit our website and we will have links there for you to sign up for the holiday summit. So until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.